All right, yesterday we got through half of these. We were able to get through the graphing. For today, we're not going to do graphing. We're going to do everything else. So we have two forms that we've learned how to use. Standard form we learned how to graph 2 weeks ago. Intercept form we learned how to graph yesterday. Everything else we're going to do, these next few problems, is learning how to switch from one form to the other, algebraically speaking. That is what we're doing on example 3. Example 3. Translate the equation below from intercept form to standard form. Those are those forms that are on the front. Really the difference between the two, intercept form is factored. And standard form is not factored. Reminder, standard form is y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. We've worked with that a lot in this class. If we take a look at our equation here, y equals 4 times x minus 2 times x plus 1. That's the factored form. So we need to put it in the not factored form. Factored is broken down, simplified. It's nice. To put it back together, we have 4 times x minus 2 times x plus 1 times we're multiplying. Everything I'm about to do here, you learned in Algebra 1, and we have done since being in Algebra 2, so this is not new material. When you multiply these back together, do not start by distributing that 4. I guarantee you, you will not do it correctly. Most students don't. So we're going to multiply the parentheses, the binomials, together first. We do this through a process called FOIL. Or if you just prefer the word distribute. But we're going to take care of that first and foremost. I'm going to bring the problem down. Y equals 4 times x minus 2 times x plus 1. And again, we're going to FOIL these. So I'll bring down y equals 4 because I'm not touching that right now. In these parentheses, I'm going to put what's left after the FOILing. When we distribute FOIL, we start with the x in the first set of parentheses, and we're going to multiply it into the second set of parentheses. X times x, that gives us x squared. X times 1, that's 1x.
Do you want parentheses?
Nope, we just want one big set. Okay. And then we're going to go through and distribute again, this time with the negative 2. Negative 2 times x, that's negative 2x. Negative 2 times 1, that's negative 2. We multiplied 4 times, so we should have 4 things here. If you do this in the order that I showed you, these middle 2 terms will be where your like terms are. If you go out of order, they'll still be there, but you'll have to find them. Y equals 4 times, I'm going to combine these 2 like terms, x squared, 1x minus 2x, so never think it. It's minus 1x, minus 2.
to solve?
Nope, no solving. We don't have to do all that. Now for the distribution step, I'm going to write this one more time. Y equals 4 times x squared minus 1x minus 2. Now we can distribute the 4 inside of there. Y equals 4 times x squared, that's 4x squared. 4 times negative 1x, negative 4x. 4 times negative 2, negative 8. We clearly can see our A, B, and C. We are done. That's all you do. FOIL, distribute, answer. Questions on that first example? Example 3. Example 4, we're going to go the other direction. Translate the equation below from standard form to intercept form. So as you can see, we have standard form now, the unfactored version. We want the factored version. That's the intercept form. We want factored. So we need a factor. When you factor, this is a rule I've been very lazy on because honestly it hasn't come up yet, but I really need to start pushing this because we're going to be looking at harder and harder problems as we continue through the class. Every time you have a factoring problem in front of you, the very first thing you should look for is a GCF, always. There are plenty of times where there won't be a GCF, but there will be plenty of times where there is one. Always check for a GCF first. From now on, my first step is I'm going to write GCF. If there's a GCF, I'm going to write it down. If there's not a GCF, I'm going to write none. But at least I am acknowledging that I checked for it. Problem A. Y equals x squared plus 5x minus 50. First, look for that GCF. Do we have a GCF? Yes or no? What is it? No? And why do you say no? Yes. There's a dead, sorry, I should ask a better question. There's a dead giveaway that there's not a GCF here. Does anyone see what that is? Yeah. The x squared, the number in front of that is a 1. Anytime you see that, you don't have a GCF because its GCF would be 1. The only other thing to look for is if 50 has an x, then we could pull that out. We don't have that. So, no GCF. So we're going to write none. I'm going to rewrite the equation. Y equals x squared plus 5x minus 50. We check for GCF. No GCF. Let's focus on the problem. Trinomial, 3 terms. How do we factor it? ACB chart. So we're going to have our factors. X is in the front always. We need our ABC. A here is 1. And we're making an ACB chart. Remember, this is A times C. That's where this number comes from. 1 times negative 50. That's negative 50. B is positive 5. And since AC is negative, that means we're actually subtracting on the right side to get that 5. That takes away some of the work of trying to figure out what numbers do and don't work. I'll start with the easy pair, 1 and 50. If I subtract these, I get 49. That's not what I want. I want 5. Does anyone know the correct two factors that I need? Colson? 5 and 10 is correct. Thank you. If I subtract these, I do get 5. Now I'm subtracting. Is it 5 minus 10 or 10 minus 5?
10 minus 5.
10 minus 5. So 5 gets the negative. Again, let's just do our quick check. Negative 5 times 10 is negative 50, yes. And then I'm going to switch the order for the subtraction. 10 minus 5 is 5, yes. So 5 is negative, 10 is positive. These are my factors, x minus 5 and x plus 10. That's my answer. Notice there is no equals 0, so we don't solve. We just stop here. Questions on A? B. Negative 4x squared minus 12x plus 216. First thing you do is look for that GCF, even if you don't have one. You always have to check. 4, and we can do something else. Negative 4. We never, ever, ever want a negative in front of that x squared. That makes our lives complicated. So anytime there's a negative in front of the x squared, I'm pulling it out. So even if it's just a negative 1, I'm taking it out. It's gone. So this time it was a negative 4. We're pulling out negative 4. We can divide 12 and 216 by 4 as well. So that is our GCF. Let's do that. Y equals negative 4x squared minus 12x plus 216. Let's pull out the GCF. We're going to divide everything by negative 4. Reminder, we don't divide and disappear. The negative 4 comes out. And in those parentheses, we're going to put what's left over. Let's divide. Negative 4's cancel. We have x squared. Negative 12 divided by negative 4, that's positive 3x. 216 divided by negative 4, that's negative 54. Now we can factor. When we factor, we're factoring what's inside of the parentheses, and negative 4 is just coming along for the ride. So we have a trinomial here, 3 terms, ACB chart. Let's bring down y equals negative 4 and make the two factors. We have our x's in the front per usual. ACB chart. When you label A, B, C, we're factoring this trinomial here, not the original one. So don't label ABC up here. That would just undo all the work we just did. ABC is right here. A is 1, B is 3, C is negative 54. A times C, 1 times negative 54, that's negative 54. B is positive 3. Again, since we have a negative 54, we're subtracting on the right side to get that 3. Let's go ahead and find the correct numbers. 54, there is a common math fact that should come to mind. Two numbers immediately. 9 and 6. That is correct. If I subtract 9 and 6, I will get 3. That is what I want. Let's check. Is this going to be 6 minus 9 or 9 minus 6? 9 minus 6. So that means 6 gets the negative. And then let's just check this real quick. Negative 6 times 9 is negative 54. Yes, that's what we needed. So I have my factors. X minus 6, x plus 9. And we're done. We just have to factor, we don't have to solve. There's no equals 0. Questions on the factoring? Bless you. These next two problems, I think you're going to like. They're different, and they're not hard. Once I show you how to do this, you're going to agree. This time, we're taking a graph and turning it into an equation. Now, if you think about all the work we did yesterday, to go from the equation to the graph, you're probably thinking this is going to take a while. To go the other way from graph to equation, we don't even need to find half of this material. We need 2 pieces of information. Bless you. We must find A, and on these problems, A is going to be one of 2 numbers. A is positive 1 or A is negative 1. We're not going to do anything beyond that. So really, you just have to figure out, is A positive or negative? It's going to be positive 1 or negative 1. The second thing you need to find are the x-intercepts. The third piece of information you need is the general form of the equation that's on the front page. Y equals A times x minus p times x minus q. That will be written on your test. Every single one of you will have this on your test. You don't have to remember that. You just have to remember how to use it. These x-intercepts are p and q. This is the only time we're going to worry about p and q. Again, once I show you how to do it, it's not hard. You'll see that. Let's do an example. Graph A. First off, we have to determine A. Is A positive or negative here? Why is it positive? How do you know? Up. This is an up shape. That means A is positive. And like I told you, A will either be positive 1 or a negative 1. In this case, A is positive 1. Step 2, the x-intercepts. We're going to find P and Q. Looking at the graph, where do we cross the x-axis? We cross it in 2 places. What are those numbers? Over here at negative 6, and over here at positive 2. For this problem, you don't have to write the points, negative 6, 0, 2, 0. Just take the numbers, the x's. So, as far as P and Q, you pick. I typically go left, right. So if negative 6 is the one on the left, then that's my P. And the right one is Q. If you want to switch it, go ahead. That's up to you. P is negative 6 and Q is positive 2. Any questions on how I got the information before I put it all together? The final piece we need is that standard equation form, the general form. Y equals A times X minus P times X minus Q. Again, you don't have to memorize that. That is given to you. And we're going to plug in A, P, and Q. Y equals A is positive 1 times X, that minus is there. It's part of the formula. P, which is negative 6. So we will have an extra minus there. Times X minus Q, which is 2. One more thing. We're just going to clean this up a little bit. Y equals, that plus is a little unnecessary, so I'm going to drop it. I'll just write 1. If you want to drop the 1 as well, you can do that. X minus negative 6. So what's a better way to write that? X plus 6. Thank you. And bring down the X minus 2. There's no changes there. That's our equation. Like I said, it's pretty easy. Once you do a few of them on your own, you'll get this down. Any questions on graph A? Graph B.
Opens down, so it's negative.
Graph B, it opens down. So A is negative. And reminder, A is 1. So this is going to be negative 1. Next, the x-intercepts, the P and Q. Looking at our graph this time, where do we cross the x-axis? Yes. So we're using negative 6 again. And this time, the point on the right is a 0. So P is negative 6 and Q is 0. Let's put it all together. Equation Y equals A times X minus P times X minus Q. Let's plug everything in. Y equals A this time is negative 1 times X minus P is negative 6, so we're going to have an extra negative in there, times X minus Q, which is 0. Let's clean this up. Y equals, you can write negative 1 or just a negative, choice is yours. I'm going to leave it as negative 1. Times, again, this becomes X plus 6. Bring down the X minus 0. This is what I would call an acceptable answer. If you wrote this down, it'd be right. But there's a better way to write this answer. And it's because of that 0. Does that 0 tell us anything important? Anything worth mentioning? No. So what's a better way to write this equation? What could I change? Just get rid of the 0. You can drop it. It doesn't change anything. This is just an X. So this is the better answer. Y equals negative 1 times X plus 6 times X. No 0 needed. Again, both of these equations are correct.